Hello guys, welcome back to another lovely trading video. In this one we're going to be doing some in-depth stock analysis on ROKU. Reason for it is firstly it was up 18% coming into close, and yeah, so we're just going to get straight into it. We start off on a clean daily chart so we can see is there any gaps that need to be filled. Looking quite quickly at the chart, there doesn't seem to be any obvious gaps. I mean, we have one at around 275. We have the newly created two gaps down at 216 and 210. We may have some gaps between here. I mean, like we have one at 420. But unless they're very obvious looking at the chart, I don't tend to use them. Reason for that is they don't tend to be as significant when coming into levels. So for right now, the 420, 276, 216 and 210, they are my significant levels when looking at gap fills. Now going on to the flexible chart so we can get the standard deviation charts up, we can then see where is price likely to go from here. And one thing you would have noticed if you were looking at ROKU intraday, and something I was had on my swing portfolio and was looking in profits as we were moving today, and the reason for that is when we're going on to the 1 day 1 minute chart, you can see yesterday we came into the first deviation, and you'll see before we were down at the second. So when you come into the first deviation, you do usually expect some sort of a pullback. We didn't get it on ROKU today, which is quite strange, but it just shows that momentum was very strong. But 9 times out of 10 you do tend to get a pullback. Doesn't mean it's going to continue down, but you do tend to get some sort of a pullback. So the majority of the time I will lock in a small amount of profit coming into these levels, just in case if it does decide to continue down, we can get out the trade at our entry, and we'll still get out with a small amount of profit. But yeah, at 234 and 250 we did come into resistance today. You can see the first one, I mean, it used it as more of a support line. So we kind of broke through, tested it again, and then that kind of gave us a confirmation that we would continue up. And that's why I missed this original thing, because I wasn't here for market open, but did end up seeing ROKU around this 238 area, and it allowed me to see, okay, we will continue holding until 250 where we will lock in a small amount of profit. But with ROKU, if you're already long, then we do have a target of locking in some at coming into 275. This is going to be our first area to lock in some decent amount of profit. Reason for that is a gap fill. We would expect somewhat of a pullback coming into this area. Wouldn't be surprised if it was quite heavy, for example coming back down to around the 250 area. So we would definitely look to be looking in some profits there. And then going up a bit higher at 290, that's where I'll be looking to lock in the rest of my profit. I probably won't be holding past 290, and the reason for that is we then come into the statistical mean on the 4 hour. Once you come to statistical mean, you then don't have a clear direction on where the stock's going to go from here. And the reason for that is if we're buying, for example, ROKU down at $200, we were below the first deviation, we were close to the second deviation, so we know at this point that we are going to try and retrace back to the statistical mean, because that's where stocks want to go, back to their mean. So we can do that, but once a stock's already at its mean, then it takes unnecessary risk holding through. So that's usually why we don't hold any stock past our statistical mean. So 290 in this case is where I'll be looking to get out of this trade completely. But if you are someone who's maybe more optimistic on ROKU, looking at a longer term trade, or you just looking for a wider profit target, then we will give you further out targets, and that would be 305, because that's the next statistical mean. And one thing to take into account is obviously you do have that $300 psychological resistance. You would expect that to be quite heavy, and that's why as well why would we be locking in profits coming into this area, because you've got the 290 statistical mean, 300 psychological level, and then 305 next statistical mean. So 3 heavy layers of resistance. We would expect a heavy pullback coming into this area, but if you are looking to hold on through that and it does continue higher, 347 would be that next target, with 362 being the next one, going upwards $400 or 403, and then 420 is both our gap fill and our second deviation on the daily. And then again, if we go even higher, around 358, 375, 516 and 533. So again, all these targets, depending on how you trade, you may use these levels differently. I'm personally already long ROKU, so I'm using these as more levels to be locking in profits. But if you're a short bias trader, then you may use like the 347, the 360 to be getting short. If you're a long bias trader only, you may wait for us to kind of break over these levels, come back, retest as we did intraday today, like kind of break that level, come back, retest, and then wait for that push to continue higher. But however you use these levels, I mean, you probably have a strategy around that, but these are just areas where we would expect to see heavy movement, either up or down, but we just tend to see these as strong volatile areas. So hope you enjoyed the video, hope to see you in the next one, and that's it. Peace.